Hello everybody, this is Connor at BoatsDon'tSink, here with another Shadowverse Evolve deck profile. This time we're going to be looking at the Machina Haven deck from BP07. As usual, this is just meant to be a starting point for people to work off of. This is a list that I've been testing and I've come to really enjoy, but it might have some cards you're not as big of a fan of, or you might want to test some other things based on your local meta, or just your personal playstyle preferences, so make sure to test out things on your own and adjust as necessary. Looking at the list, similar to our Natura sword deck, we are playing most of the entire package of Machina cards here, since we are a Machina-themed deck. Though we do have a couple of sort of Haven staples from throughout some of the older sets, notably Jeanne d'Arc from set 1, Kaede Takagaki from the Idolmaster Cinderella Girls set, Dark Jeanne and Ether, both from set 4. I believe everything else in this deck, though, is from our newest set, set 7, and is all themed around the Machina archetype. Evo deck is pretty simple. We have 3 Lamonias because she is our main card we want to be evolving. Everything else is 2 ofs, and 1 Dark Jeanne just for our 1 base copy. Of course, you can use the decklog code in the bottom right or the link in the description to check out the decklog page for yourself. It's going to be 66HFN. Digging a little deeper here, we're playing 34 followers, 3 spells, and 3 amulets. This is a weird kind of deck to describe the playstyle of. It's not a control deck, though it does have a lot of board control aspects. It's not an aggro deck, though we do have a relatively low curve with some fast followers. It is kind of just a mid-rangey deck. We are playing for a lot of grind value, but we are playing, of course, 34 followers. We are trying to stay on board and punch in as much as possible. Our 3 spells are actually not removal spells. A lot of the lists for this build play Surefire Bullets. We're skipping out on those here. We're just playing 3 Augmentation Bestowals as our only spells. That's going to be sort of a play point cheating card that lets us get big guys into play. And our 3 amulets are just consistency pieces. So we really are just a follower-focused deck that's going to be trying to stay on board here. Our curve is pretty low. 27 of our cards are going to be at 3 cost or lower. We do have a little bit of a peak at 5 cost, though most, or I guess not most, well yeah, most, 3 out of our 5 drops refund play points on play. So we are really keeping about 3/4 of our deck costing 3 or less. So pretty low curve, which is even more interesting for a deck that has as many board wipe options as we do, but I really like the playstyle of this deck. It has a lot of like recursive aspects. Your 2 drops put in a ton of work, so it feels really good to play. Not many like unplayable hands out of it, despite the slightly higher curve than I usually like having. Jumping into our specific cards, starting off we have Mecha Gun Wielder. This is a 1-drop 1/2. Fanfare, we can put an Assembly Droid or Repair Mode token into the EX area. Assembly Droid is a 1-cost 1/1 that can engage and sack 3 Machina followers to deal 5 to an enemy follower. They are more prominent in the Rune and especially Abyss Machina decks. We're usually not going to be going for the Assembly Droid here. Instead, we'll be taking the Repair Mode, which is a 1-cost quick spell that just gives our leader +1 defense. It seems very underwhelming because it is. We're actually not aiming to play these repair modes. We're typically instead just aiming to fill up our EX area with them, and a lot of our other cards are going to require them for effects. Second effect we have here is Last Words. We can discard a Machina card, draw a card. Very similar to the Colorful Cook or the Natura archetype. This is basically just the analog of that. We have 9 different Machina cards in the deck. They do make up the majority of the deck. But similar to Colorful Cook in the Natura decks, we're not really aiming to always jam this Last Words effect. We don't particularly need to be filling our cemetery for many reasons, and a lot of the Machina cards that we do have are cards that we want to curve out on. So if they're in your hand early with the Mecha Gun Wielder, you don't really have much reason to be discarding them. You'd rather just play them. If anything, you may discard a Father Refinement or Techno Lord on like turn 1 or 2, Just because they're big, you're not going to get to play them for a minute. You have more like 3 copies of each, so you can find the others if you do need them. And it can help you dig for just better playables in the early game. Typically, if you're discarding to this, it's going to be a second copy of Mecha Gunwielder. You want to play at turn 1, but they lose value pretty quick, so filtering extra Mecha Gunwielders into better cards is going to be the play there. Our second 1-drop is our Amulet, Saintly Core. Fanfare, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may reveal a Machina card from among them, add it to your hand, put the rest on bottom of deck. Again, this is going to find the majority of our deck. This is just great for curving out a bit smoother. If you don't open Mecha Gunwielder turn 1, playing Saintly Core on turn 1 can hopefully get you into a good turn 2 play to make up for it. Alternatively, sometimes you'll play this turn 3 due to just like the high density of 2-drops we have in the deck. You can play a 2-drop on 2 and then play Saintly Core plus another 2-drop on 3, or anything like that. Later into the game, especially, this can just be really easy to slot into turns, which can help you dig for extra Lemonias or Father Refinements or Techno Lords to sort of keep gas in the late game. The other effect is to engage and bury this, put a repair mode token into your EX area. You can only activate if there are at least 2 Machina followers on your field. Moving into the mid and late game, getting 2 Machina followers on field is extremely easy because we have a lot of playpoint refunding or just recursion from Cemetery. In the early game, this can be a little annoying if your opponent has removal. You might play a 2-drop, and then if they kill it before you get your next follower on board, it's going to be hard to sack this. So typically when you're building up in the early game, the moment you have the chance to activate this ability, I usually go for it. Unless, of course, I know that it's going to overcap me on repair modes. One of the biggest things about this deck, since we're using repair modes as a resource for effects, we can only hold 5 in the EX area, so making sure you don't use your effects to generate more than you can reasonably hold is important. You don't want to be playing cards that could give you a repair mode next turn to just get like a 6th one this turn that fizzles. Moving into our 2-drops, we have Iron Knuckle Nun. This is definitely one of the most important cards in the deck. It's a 2-cost 2/3 ward, Fanfare, and Last Words. You put a repair mode token into your EX area. So obviously this helps us build up to our 5 repair modes pretty quickly. This is also one of the most frequent things we will be getting back out of our Cemetery. Lemonia, our main boss monster, has the ability to reanimate a cost 2 or lower follower. So using this to just very quickly refill on repair modes while also providing a ward with pretty reasonable stats can be quite good. Next we have Marcotte, Heretical Sister. This card is not Machina trait, but it is from set 7 and it does have quite good synergy with the Machina deck, though it also has good synergy with some of the other EX area focused archetypes like Fable Haven. So this card can slot into a few different decks. It's a 2-cost 1/3 ward. So again with the ward, we have a lot of like sort of cheap ward bodies in this deck. Fanfare, draw a card. Already pretty good. A 2-drop 1/3 ward that cantrips is like great. But if there are 5 cards in your EX area, instead of drawing a card, you get to search for any card, add it to your hand, shuffle. You don't even have to reveal this to your opponent because you are allowed to get any card. Typically, our search targets for this are going to be some of our bigger cards. You aren't going to have 5 EX area, obviously, like on curve playing Marcotte. This is usually going to be a turn 4, 5, 6, and onward that you're going to be searching for whatever you want, at which point searching for your end game pieces is going to be the goal usually. Either Lemonia to get more board wipes and keep setting up, or Techno Lord or Ether to try to go for finisher plays. But Marcotte's great at that, and there's actually a lot of ways we can sort of weave her into our turns to where we're not, we don't feel like we're taking turns off to play Marcotte to search. We can do other things and also get Marcotte out to be able to set up while still progressing the game state. So overall, this card's fantastic. But like worst case scenario, it replaces itself by drawing a card. So if you just run this out on turn 2, like you're fine with that. It's always a good card. Our last 2-cost follower is Robo Falcon. So instead of ward, this one's gonna have Storm, also a 2-cost 1/3. Strike, put a repair mode token into your EX area. Then if there are at least 3 cards named repair mode in your EX area, give this follower +1 attack. So this is our first payoff for specifically repair modes. Marcotte needs any card in EX area, but it's always going to be repair modes. That's the only thing we're putting in our EX area in this deck. If you got 3, this turns into a 2/3 immediately on attack, which a 2-cost 2/3 Storm is already pretty good. This does stack every turn, so if it lives and attacks again on the next turn, it'll turn into a 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, so on and so forth. Typically, your opponent will answer it by then, but it is worth noting that they do kind of have to answer it, or it can scale to pretty annoying heights. It also evolves for 1 play point into a 2/4, which, if you go second and Evo point this into a 2/4 and swing on turn 2, this is actually like one of the most obnoxious followers to answer. There's not that much removal that your opponent on like 3 going first can like efficiently answer this with. Obviously there's like 2-cost removal spells, but if they do that, they're not progressing their board state at all, and they already took a hit from a storm body. So this card going second is just nuts, especially if you hit the Mecha Gun Wielder on turn 1. Robo Falcons on Evo effect also gives you a repair mode. So now, you know, Mecha Gun Wielder gives you a repair mode turn 1. This evolves, gives you a second repair mode. Strike gives you the 3rd repair mode, and now you have a 3/4 Storm. Turn 2, you've hit your opponent for 4 damage. Which then they have to start answering it very quickly because you will pressure them hard. It's why this deck has sort of an aggro aspect to it. You can definitely open aggro curves, which you may not expect from a deck with this kind of strategy. But it makes the deck very flexible and sort of threatens your opponent on multiple angles. Because this card is a 2-drop, it is also one of the cards that we will be reanimating throughout the game off of Lamonia. So if we would rather pressure damage instead of getting wards that reset up our repair modes, we have that option as well. Last 2-drop we have is Augmentation Bestowal. This is our spell in the deck. It's choose one of the following. We have 2 options here. Option 1 is to banish 2 repair modes from our EX area, to summon a cost 3 or lower Machina follower from deck. Usually the 2 options we're going to be looking at here are either Robo Falcon, if we want to pressure damage, because it's 2 play points to do this, which is the same as playing a Robo Falcon would be anyway. And we're getting rid of 2 repair modes, but by evolving the Robo Falcon and attacking, we're getting 2 back. So it's effectively an entirely resource neutral play that just turns this into an extra source of storm damage from our hand. The other card we'd be looking to get is Lamonia, who Fanfare does give us a repair mode back, so we're only -1 repair mode by doing that. Later in the game, this can be pretty good, because although we are -1 repair mode, which effectively means -1 play point in terms of Lamonia, we're only paying 2 to get her out instead of 3, so we're +1 play point there. So it's again kind of resource neutral, and just turns into extra copies of Lamonia from your deck. If you're not able to find the Lamonias to your hand, this can be sort of a last-ditch way to get them. Typically not what you want to be aiming for here, since it's not as playpoint efficient as it could be. It is, again, just sort of resource neutral. Our second option here, however, is what we really want to be aiming for with this card. So the second option is to banish 5 repair modes to summon a cost 6 or less Machina follower. And our target for that is obviously just going to be Techno Lord. The 6-drop 6/6 with a wall of text just gives us 4 more options to choose from, and we get 4 more options and we get 2 of them. So this can be very powerful. With how easy it is to get repair modes quickly with the right curve, you can be doing this as early as turn 4 and getting the Techno Lord out. If you hit a curve of like Robo Falcons and Iron Knuckle Nuns that give you multiple repair modes each. And trust me, a 6-drop 6/6 on turn 4, even if you don't get to resolve the Fanfare effect, can put an immense amount of pressure on your opponent. And again, because this only costs 2 play points, similar to Marcotte, it is very easy to weave into turns that are already powerful otherwise. We'll look at some of the ways you can do that as we see more cards here. Moving into our 3-cost cards, we have Lamonia, Flawed Saint. This is our main legendary boss monster for the deck. This is a 3-cost 3/2. Fanfare, put a repair mode token into your EX area. And activated ability, we can banish a repair mode token from EX area. This card's evolve ability costs 1 less this turn. That is very important because if you haven't noticed, Lamonia has, I believe, the currently highest printed cost evolve ability in the game. She costs 7 play points to evolve. But by banishing repair modes, say you have 5 in EX area, you can reduce that all the way down to 2. So a lot of the time, our goal is going to be get the full EX area by turn 4 going second or 5 going first, so that we can either pay 2 or pay 1 and an Evo point to get Lamonia evolved and start putting just even more pressure on our opponent. She evolves into a 5/4. On evolve, destroy each enemy follower on the field, which is fantastic board wipe effect. And coming in on like turn 4, turn 5 is actually really powerful for a board wipe because it allows you to focus more on playing your own followers and attacking your opponent, rather than having to focus on answering their board, because you know, like turn 4, turn 5, which with the way the format is right now, that's kind of the earliest your opponent's going to be threatening you. There's not really like many super fast aggro decks right now. So being able to like board wipe them as soon as they're ready to start punching you is kind of the perfect time. In addition to that, we can pay 0 activated ability once per turn to select a Machina follower that costs 2 or less in Cemetery and summon it. You only do this once per turn, but that's kind of all you need. We're going to either be getting Iron Knuckle Nun or Robo Falcon here. Typically, the turn that you evolve Lamonia, you'll be going for Iron Knuckle Nun, since you can't also evolve the Robo Falcon. And it gives you a 2/3 ward, which can protect you. It can protect Lamonia from like Assail, which is important if you're playing against a deck that has access to Viridia Magna. Putting a ward in the way of Viridia Magna can stop it from just attacking your untapped Lamonia and removing it. And Iron Knuckle Nun is a card that gives you 2 repair modes, which can help quickly refill from like the 4 or 5 you probably banished to be able to evolve Lamonia in the first place. Robo Falcon, on the other hand, if your Lamonia has already stuck around for a turn, is a great card to like bring back and evolve and get, again, even more repair modes. But if you Lamonia get Iron Knuckle Nun, even if they don't kill the Iron Knuckle Nun, evolving Robo Falcon and swinging with it will put you at 3 total repair modes, so you get the attack boost, and then you get in for 3 damage with Robo Falcon, 5 damage with Lamonia, 2 damage with Iron Knuckle Nun. It puts your opponent in a position where if they don't answer your board, they kind of just die in a couple turns. So now you've board wiped them, and they're having to spend all of their resources to answer your Lamonia, because she's a massive threat. So really powerful card, can really swing the tide of the game. And that's why we play 3 base and 3 Evo. We really want our whole game plan to be centering around this card. Next 3-drop, slightly less important card. Marlone, Light of Balance. This is a 3-cost 3/3. Again, not Machina, though it does have good synergy with the deck. Fanfare, each player puts a repair mode token into their EX area. So while it's not Machina, it is still giving us repair modes. Giving your opponent a repair mode is kind of like a net neutral. It seems like a downside, but usually most decks aren't going to want to be spending the 1 play point to get 1 defense back anyway. Sometimes it smooths out their curve and like giving them 1 extra defense kind of sucks. But in other matchups, if they're decks that like want to utilize their EX area, so like a lot of the Natura decks want to be using it as a sort of toolbox, or Machina Abyss probably wants to be stocking up assembly droids there. Being able to, or like they might even have Gensetsu that they're trying to put foxes there. Being able to like clog up their EX area can be kind of cool. I generally wouldn't really consider this like a plus or minus for the card though. The more important part is that it gives you a repair mode. It evolves for 1 into a 4/4. On evolve, select an enemy follower that costs X or less and destroy it. X is the number of cards in your EX area. This doesn't care about the defense of the follower you're destroying, just the cost. So this can be really good at destroying like low cost, high stat followers. So like a 2-cost 5/5 Ancient Elf, or even just like a 4-cost 4/4 Balian, or against Forest, the 4-cost 6/6 Latica, are all things that could be hard to remove as single targets otherwise, but Marlone makes pretty easy work of. Generally, things like this that your opponent might only have like one follower on board, you don't want to be blowing your board wipes on. So having good single target removal like this is pretty useful. I know a lot of people aren't entirely fans of Marlone, just because he does give your opponent the repair mode. He is a little weird on how he removes things, and he's not Machina trait, so he misses on some of your effects. If you don't want to play Marlone, the best alternative that you probably have is Ruby Falcon from BP03. It's also not Machina, so you're not gaining anything there, but you're not losing anything. Ruby Falcon is on evolve deal 2, which is a lot worse at actually removing your opponent's bodies, but it is a ward itself and has the ability that whenever one of your ward or storm followers attacks, you get to deal 1 damage to your opponent. Which can mean your cards like Iron Knuckle Nun, Robo Falcon, and Marcotte get a lot of extra chip damage in throughout the game. And it also has the ability to pay extra play points to give itself Storm. So late game it can be like an additional finisher option if you need it. So that's probably what I would put in over Marlone if you don't like that card. Apologies for not having an image of Ruby Falcon to put up on the slide here. Our final 3-drop is Mecha Wing Angel, another neutral Machina card. It's a 3/3 ward, so again, another card that synergizes with the rest of our sort of ward stuff, and would be good with Ruby Falcon as well. Fanfare, put an assembly droid or repair mode into your EX area. As with Mecha Gun Wielder, we're just always taking repair modes here. We really don't care about the assembly droids. Activated ability, we can engage to select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 4 damage, but we can only activate if there's at least 5 Machina cards in Cemetery. This means you don't get really good removal on curve, unfortunately, but a little later into the game, once you've started to have some stuff die, or you've played some augmentation bestowals, or been able to sack some saintly cores, you'll be able to play this to deal 4 damage to things. Makes for pretty cheap, like efficient removal that you can use while also refilling on repair modes, things like that. Another non-Machina card we have, 4-drop Jeanne d'Arc. 4-drop 3/3 Fanfare, deal 2 damage to each enemy follower on the field. Pretty staple Haven card ever since set 1. It evolves for 2 play points into a 4/5. On evolve, deal 2 damage to each enemy follower on the field once again, and then give each other follower on your field +2 defense. This card is fantastic just because of the way the meta is situated right now. Decks like Forest and Abyss have very important cards that want to be sitting on their field that give them significantly more powerful plays. Abyss especially is a deck that wants to be able to untap with as much board as possible to buff it and swing in with storm damage. So being able to clear that with a card like Jeanne can set them pretty far back, especially when they're trying to play like a lot of 1/1s and 2/2s that they're buffing into 3/3s, 4/4s, and so on. Being able to just clear those off before they get a chance to buff and swing with them can be great. Bone Drone in particular is one of their powerful cards. It's a 2/2, but when it dies, it leaves behind a 1/1. Since Jeanne's damage is in 2 separate instances, the base form can kill the Bone Drone, and then the Evo can kill the assembly droid it leaves. Forest, if an Avatar Fruition gets to live on board, it can enable Latica coming down as early as turn like 4 or 5 at the latest. Which is still pretty early for you to have like good answers for. So being able to just play base Jeanne and deal 2 to everything and clear off an untapped Avatar, again, fantastic. And it can answer any smaller stuff like colorful cooks that they have sitting around. Also just good for dealing with various 4/4s. There's still a lot of good 3-drops that evo for 1 and 2 4/4s that your opponent may be sticking on their board in addition to other followers throughout the mid game. Balian comes to mind. It's also just good for clearing off smaller followers that Balian might want to pump in the sword deck. So all around, Jeanne is just a great card at clearing off boards. The +2 defense to all of your followers also works very well with all the wards we have. It can turn our 2-drop 2/3 wards into like 2-drop 2/5s. It can make our Robo Falcon 6 defense, which just makes it significantly harder to remove for a lot of decks. Jumping into our 5-drops, we have Father Refinement. This card is nuts. 5-drop 4/4 gold does not seem like a lot on the surface, but the effects they printed on this guy, hoo-wee. So he has Rush. He can attack the turn you play him, which is great. The Fanfare here is the real kicker. Fanfare, we get 2 repair modes into our EX area, which is great for refueling. But we also recover 2 play points. So this guy is now essentially a 3-cost 4/4 Rush. It gives us 2 repair modes. That is already way better rate than like anything else we've seen in the deck, as far as like giving us repair modes and setting us up. However, he also has a strike ability. Strike, you draw a card just for free. So similar to Marcotte, he always replaces himself as long as he has something to swing at. But if you have 5 repair modes in your EX area, you draw 2 instead. Let me tell you, that was our whole goal anyway, was getting 5 repair modes. So being able to draw 2 for it is free as free can get. Big thing here though, like not only are we drawing 2 cards, we get the 2 play points back, which means turn 5 we can play this and also a 2-drop. And we have some really good 2-drops for that. So the big ones here, Marcotte. We can play Father Refinement, get 2 repair modes. If that puts us to 5, not only do we get to draw 2 off of Father Refinement, we also get to search for any card to play on the following turn with Marcotte. So now we get to, 4/4 Rush, clear something, draw 2 cards, play Marcotte, search our turn 6 play, have a 1/3 ward, like, great setup there. Alternatively, we can play Father Refinement, swing, draw 2 cards, and then use the 2 play points we got back to Augmentation Bestowal, sack the 5 repair modes, and put a Techno Lord into play. So turn 5, you might get like a 4/4 Rush, draw 2, and then also get a 6/6 that destroys their follower and tutors like a Lamonia for the next turn, or like another Techno Lord or something. Just really, or you can't tutor another Techno Lord, I guess, but you can tutor like Lamonia, you can tutor another Father Refinement, anything like that. So just really powerful setups that put your opponent in really awkward positions where, once again, similar to Lamonia, they kind of have to start answering the things on your board because it gets out of hand very quickly. We're able to just build, we don't have storm damage as much, but we're able to build very powerful boards that force answers. Our other 5-drop is Kaede Takagaki from Idolmaster Cinderella Girls. This is a 5-cost 3/5 ward. Fanfare, select an enemy follower on the field and banish it. So just unconditional banish removal, which is great. There's a lot of decks right now that are quite good that have recursive effects. So Machina Abyss has Alpha Drive to be able to reanimate mono from the cemetery. Natura Forest has the Forest Hermit that can add Latica back from cemetery. And cards like Viridian Magna that have last words, of course, also get shut off by the banish. So this has a lot of good targets. Banishing is notably better than destroying against a lot of decks. And when all of our other removal in this deck is either destroy or damage based, having a banish option is helpful. We also have the ability at the start of end phase, if our leader's defense is 5 or less, give it +5 defense and draw a card. So having a 5 heal if we're low is quite good. A lot of these same decks, Machina Abyss, Natura Forest, Natura Sword, have big storm followers that are going to be chunking in damage on us. And if they ever find an opening, it's not unlikely that we do get hit below 5 at some point. And being able to use Kaede to heal 5 and get back out of their kill range, and then also draw a card and have a 3/5 ward, can be great for just sort of like restabilizing after their big turns. If we're able to answer their card that hit us, then they might not be able to find a way to get us back into that kill range. We play 1 copy of Dark Jean, a 6-cost 5/5. Fanfare, deal 2 damage to each other follower on the field. Give each other follower on your field +2 attack. This has crazy good synergy with this deck for no real reason. A lot of our followers have 3 defense. So Iron Knuckle Nun, Robo Falcon, Mecha Wing, these are all going to be able to take the 2 damage from Dark Jean and be able to swing with the attack bonus. So Iron Knuckle Nun can attack for 4. Robo Falcon Evolved can attack for 5. Base Form can still attack for 4. Mecha Wing Angel can swing for 5. This lets us get cheap boards out, and if they ever stick, we threaten significantly more damage than our opponent might be expecting. It's essentially +2 damage for every follower that we have, which could be, 4, 6 extra damage that our opponent didn't know was coming. And 2 damage to each other follower on the field could clear out small wards, things like Bellringer Angels, that our opponent might have blocking our way. Dark Jean does also evolve, though, for 1 play point into a 6/6. If your leader has at least 5 defense, select an enemy follower on the field, deal 4 to it and each leader. You do deal 4 to yourself, which is not fantastic, but typically you're only doing this if you're killing your opponent. It's got to deal 4 to their leader, and also, again, clear out potential wards that could be blocking the way. This means that, like, Dark Jean on a board of 3 2-drops just instantly represents 10 extra damage to your opponent on top of the 2 drops you had. If your opponent is not expecting this and they leave you a board of shitters, 5 damage can turn into 15, and all of a sudden they're dead. So very powerful card, a very good way to just sort of steal games. It does also have synergy with Kaede slightly. If you're ever at like 8 or 9 defense, you can shoot yourself for 4 and turn on Kaede's effect to just heal you 5 back and draw you a card, which is like negligible most of the time, but it's heal 1, draw 1, which is kind of cool. And it makes your Kaede a 5/3, I guess, instead of a 3/5, so she can attack for numbers. Kind of something to consider. Our big 6-drop that we're playing 3 of, Techno Lord, the big neutral boss monster for the Machina archetype. 6-drop, 6/6. Fanfare, banish 3 Machina cards from your cemetery. So obviously we're playing a lot of them. By the time we're playing this guy down, we should have at least 3 cards that we can get rid of. You want to be careful not to get rid of your 2-drops that Lamonia can reanimate, but those are the only things we'll ever be getting back out of our cemetery. So anything else can go, especially like Augmentation Bestowals, Saintly Cores, things like that. Once we've used them, we can just get rid of them. We get to choose 2 of the 4 following options. We can, option 1, destroy an enemy follower. Great. Option 2, destroy an enemy amulet. Usually not relevant, but there are matchups where it comes up. Lashena, sword decks that want to play Leonidas, we can just clear basically their win conditions and shut them out of the format. If people are trying to get cute and play Heal Haven, we can destroy the Alana's Prayer, etc. Option 3, deal 3 to each enemy leader. This gives us an option for burn damage. It's especially good if they don't have any followers on field that we need to answer. We can just deal 3 and then choose option 4, which is to search our deck for a Machina card not named Technolord. So he can't search himself, but he's quite good at searching out either Lamonia or Father Refinement or Augmentation Bestowal to set up powerful plays to follow up after him. There are, of course, also times where, you play this guy on, say, like 8, you can deal 3, search for a Robo Falcon, play Robo Falcon Evo, and hit for more. And this just counts as like 6 storm damage or whatever. So, versatile, big body, and we have ways to cheat him into play. There's not much else you could ask for here. Last card we play is Ether of the White Wing. 7-drop, 3/5, ward once again. Fanfare, search your deck for a Havencraft follower with a different name from this that costs less than your maximum play points and put it onto your field. It is the only 7-drop we play, meaning if we play it for 7, every Havencraft follower in our deck will be a legal target immediately on curve. The only one you kind of don't want to get immediately on curve is Dark Jean if you're going first, because you won't be able to evolve her. But generally, this is going to be a way to search out some of our more expensive cards. It can act as a second copy of Dark Jean that has a little more versatility, so it's a little safer to search for off of like Marcotte. Alternatively, you can use it to get Kaede for just removal and 2 3/5 wards that your opponent has to get through. Pretty good for stabilizing, especially if you don't think they can answer both of the 3/5s. You answer their like one big threat and then leave behind bodies that can punch in for like reasonable damage. If both of them live, you can hit for 6, which is pretty good. Alternatively, you can search for Father Refinement, which will trigger his fanfare to give you 2 play points back, meaning you can do all of the cool turn 5 Father Refinement plays once again, where you do things like 7 play points, you play Ether, summon Father Refinement, get 2 back, swing with him, draw 2 cards, play Augmentation, Bestowal, put a Techno Lord into play, and now all of a sudden you've put like 13, 15 of stats into play on turn 7, and your opponent has to figure out what to do. Looking at the deck as a whole, obviously it has a lot of different options as I've gone through. This is one of the longer deck profiles I've done recently just because of the number of different plays you have here. The pros of the deck, there's a lot of them. You can consistently field multiple wards, which is very good this format. Abyss and Sword both have sort of issues getting a lot of damage through multiple wards. They can still get some sometimes, but Forest is kind of the only deck that's going to be able to ignore your wards. Most other decks, having multiple wards will shut out a large portion of their damage potential. You have easy access to full board clears. Lamonia destroys everything, you play 3 of them. Jean deals 4 to everything, you play 3 of them. Techno Lord can destroy things, Kaede can banish things. You just have a lot of good removal options here. We have very powerful turns through playpoint cheating, with Augmentation, Bestowal, Father Refinement, Refunding, and Ether being able to summon basically anything for free. We have just lots of ways to make disproportionately large boards for low amounts of play points. And we have cheap recursive bodies that makes building boards easy. Because Lamonia can bring back any of our 2-drops, our opponent just kind of has to answer them over and over again, which can wear through their removal, making a path for our bigger guys, or just setting up a board of small weenies that Dark Jean pumps big enough to kill our opponent. The cons of the deck, however, are, again, we don't actually have a whole lot of storm damage outside of Techno Lord's deal 3, Dark Jean's deal 4, and Robo Falcon. So we are a bit reliant on getting in like chip damage, like 2-3 damage at a time throughout the game, or sticking a big enough board for Dark Jean to blow our opponent out. We do also struggle against decks that are designed to survive long games. So the big ones you're looking at here are like Natura Dragon, where their deck is primarily a handful of like expensive removal options, and they're just kind of sitting on the Shadow's Corrosions in their EX area to grind us out. It can be hard to win that. Control Abyss can also be questionable, just because they do have enough recursion through like Death's Breath to get through a lot of board wipes over and over again. You're pretty heavily reliant on Kaede banishing their best cards for that, but they have more good targets than we have Kaede's, so that one can get a bit questionable as well. The deck as a whole, though, I think is very powerful. Real good meta deck. I think it's vastly underrated in the field right now. I think it has good matchups into like Sword and Abyss, which are 2 of the most represented decks, despite the bad matchup into Dragon. So I think it's definitely one people should try out. Either with the Marlone or Ruby Falcon. I think both are great options. I see a lot of people trying to jam Wilbert into the deck. I'm not as big of a fan of that. I think it kind of opens you up to, yeah, you get some really powerful plays where you like Wilbert into Kaede or Wilbert into Lapis, but it also opens you up to some pretty garbage turns where you like Wilbert into a 2-drop or a 1-drop, and it's just not really as strong as some of the other things the deck could be doing. So I'd rather just stick to something like this with a heavy Machina focus and lean all in on Lamonia and Techno Lord and try to win that way. As I said at the beginning, you can use the decklog code in the bottom right or the link in the description if you want to check out the deck on decklog yourself. Otherwise, thank you for sitting through this one. This is one of my favorite decks this format. I've really been enjoying it, so had a lot to say about it here. But again, thanks for watching. We'll have some more videos up soon. In the meantime, there should be some on the screen for you to check out now. We'll see you then.